Hi, everyone. You're listening to Radio Cherry Bomb, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond. I'm the founder and editor of Cherry Bomb magazine. Today is the final episode of our Fashion Plate miniseries, presented by our friends at Boden. Over the past few Wednesdays, I've talked to some of my favorite folks at the intersection of food and fashion about how they bring taste and style to everything they do. I chatted with culinary creatives Zainab Issa and Romilly Newman, and with mother-daughter cookbook authors Trudy Crane and Chloe Crane LaRue. If you missed any of these episodes, please go back and give a listen. Today, I'm talking to Boden founder Johnnie Boden. Boden has graciously supported our series. We did a really fun dinner with them last week at Lord's in New York City, and it's been a blast getting to know Johnnie. He and his team have built one of the most successful British fashion brands around, and he talks about entrepreneurship in a really unique way. I wanted him to share his story with all of you because I know there are so many business owners out there in our audience. I've learned a lot from his advice and candor about his own experience, and I am sure you will too. Also, Johnnie's built a brand that is all about color and joy, something a lot of us aspire to. Stay tuned for our chat. Our interview was recorded at Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City. Early bird tickets are now on sale for Jubilee 2025, which is taking place in Manhattan at the Glass House, a brand new location, very exciting, on Saturday, April 12th. Jubilee is a wonderful day of community and connection, and we would love to see you there. Also, we're hosting our very first Jubilee Wine Country at the beautiful Solage Resort in Calistoga, California, on October 26th and 27th. Join me, Dominique Crenn, Jenny Britton, Tanya Holland, and lots of other amazing folks for what is going to be an incredible weekend of food, drink, and of course, wine. For more information or to purchase tickets, visit cherrybomb.com. Now, let's hear from today's guest. Johnnie Boden, welcome to Radio Cherry Bomb.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well, a bit sleepless. Lovely dinner in the West Village last night.
And you and I are both a little jet-lagged.
Yes.
You are here from London. I just flew in from Milan.
Very exotic, yes.
My life's not so jet-set. Yours maybe.
No, it isn't. Mine is really very humdrum, actually. Everybody imagines that designing clothes is you spend your life with beautiful people going to lovely shows, when in fact you spend most of your time in flea markets and looking at numbers and dealing with people who I've annoyed.
Well, we're about to find out more about all of that. Okay, so Johnnie, I want to start. You are a big believer in throwing yourself at life. What does that mean?
I think throwing yourself at life is largely about being comfortable with taking risks. And I think you get the most out of life the more risks you take. Taking risks is largely about not being scared what other people think of you. I think that's the thing that holds most people back, and certainly held me back, is, I can't do that because what would my father say or what would my friends say? But once you can get over that, life has more opportunities.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So you think it's more the fear of what other people think of you versus the risk of failure?
Yes. Well, in my case, I've never really been scared of failing. I've worried much more about how I will be judged and what people will say about me behind my back.
Okay. Spoiler alert. We are going to talk about failure and fear of failure, because you have no fear of failure, but we'll talk about that in a bit. You did, though, throw yourself at life at a young age. I was so fascinated, but I'd worked in fashion magazines for years. You were even a teenage fashion editor at Harper's and Queen magazine.
Correct, yes.
You organized parties at university. Did you not pursue a creative path because of what you just told us?
My father was a very dominating character, and I had no creative training. And I remember when I did this article piece for Harper's and Queen, I was so excited. I was given £20, which is a huge amount of money, $30 40 years ago. And my father, I told him about it. He said, that's a bloody stupid job. I was far too in awe of him and my mother to do my own thing at that stage.
You did wind up pursuing a career in the financial world.
Yes, correct. Very close to here, actually.
Yes. Where were you?
It was so awful, my career, and the whole experience was, I was so bad at it. I've forgotten. It was on 6th Avenue, but I used to come and have lunch here, and I was really, really bad at it, and I really didn't enjoy it. In many ways it was a waste, but in other ways it made me realize what I shouldn't do.
How did you wind up in New York?
New York, for any young British person in the 80s, was the most exciting place. We'd had Wall Street, there was Madonna. It was all very glamorous, and everybody wanted to work in New York, and it was really exciting to be here. Unfortunately, it's hard being in a city where you don't like your job, but apart from that, I absolutely loved it here.
the Brits took over media.
Yes.
Anna
yes.
Wintour, Tina Brown.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. I wasn't thinking about that world when I was here, but I had loads of friends and it was great.
And good memories of New York, or was the career so depressing?
No, actually, I bought a lot of vinyl, and I also, soon after I came back, I set up a record label, and I tried to create a track based on using samples of tracks that I'd heard in clubs here. My children tease me and say, "Oh, Dad, you're so tragic." And you were trying to be down with the kids. And I pretend I would go and see Todd Terry in the Bronx. Todd Terry was this great DJ. I loved that world, actually, and it helped me escape from the financial world that I wasn't very good at.
You love house music.
I mean, I love everything.
So when you say house music, was it like Stone Roses?
No,
this
was
Real house
Chicago, the start of post-disco dance music. Todd Terry was the guy who got it going. It was electric dance music that had started in Chicago and came to New York.
Okay, so you're serious.
I was quite serious.
Did I read correctly that you owned a few bars?
I worked in a bar.
Okay.
So my career, my unsuccessful financial career ended when I was left some money unexpectedly by my uncle who died. And I went back to England with no clear idea what to do, although I had an idea of setting up a clothing business. But one of the other ideas I had was to run a bar. And I worked in a bar for about a year. I didn't enjoy it very much. I found the hours too punishing. And also staff, I had problems with theft. It wasn't quite right. It didn't tick quite enough boxes, but there were lots I enjoyed about it.
Okay, well, hospitality world's lost, but
yes.
Fashion world's gain, right?
Yep.
Your wife, Sophie, gave you a serious nudge,
yes.
and that resulted in Boden.
Correct.
Take us back to that conversation.
So I was very, very lucky in my life. I had an extraordinarily good education. I went to a famous school you might have heard called Eton, University of Oxford, and I really had so many privileges. And there I was. I failed in the city. I failed as a teacher. I failed at running a bar. And I met this lovely girl, Sophie, who is now my wife. Rather romantically, I met her at a party, and I realized after 20 minutes that she was the one. It took her a bit longer.
Wait, the one as in the one you wanted to marry?
Yeah, she was attractive and funny, made me laugh a lot. I took her back to her car and I said, "Can you give me your telephone number?" And she said, "Find it yourself," which is quite punchy.
And did you?
Anyway, I did find it. I waited 3 days before I rang her. And I rang her up and I said, "Oh, hi, it's Johnny here." And she said, "You've taken your time," which was quite impressive. She's quite punchy. Anyway, in the similar vein, she said to me a couple of months in, she said, "You've had this extraordinary start in life and you're a failure, really." And I said, "Well, I've got this idea of setting up a clothing business." And she said, "Well, if you don't do it, I'll leave you." And I never looked back. Actually. She's been unbelievably supportive.
That seems to me like such a giant leap.
Yes.
To go from not having worked in fashion except for your teenage editor experience to launching a brand.
Yes. I mean, it's a very good point. What you have to remember was that I was unemployable. I'd exhausted everything. There was no way anybody would take me because they wouldn't take me seriously. And I had this idea. When I was working in my financial job in the city, it wasn't actually Wall Street, it was Midtown, just close to here. And I noticed my colleagues were buying lots of clothes from catalogues. In the UK, there were no catalogues. So there was a company called Next, and that was it. There were no upmarket companies selling clothes. I thought this was a good idea. I'd failed in the city. I'd failed running a bar as a teacher. And I was in the kind of last chance saloon. What persuaded me that it was possible was that I went to talk to lots of people who set up their own businesses. And I kind of said, "Can I set up my own business?" And they said yes. I realized you don't have to be a genius to set up your own business. All it takes is huge, huge energy and commitment and a goodish idea. You need to listen to your customer and listen to other people, the right people. Frankly, from the moment I set it up, I've never looked back. I've had huge problems and dramas along the way. There were always customers for it, the product, which is great.
Did you know how to sketch? Did you know how to take a design?
No, I did all of that. I learned a bit about everything. But the extraordinary thing that always surprised me was how easy it was to extract information out of people. My parents had many faults, but they had many qualities. And the thing that I learned above all from them was how to say please and how to say thank you. And if you can approach people in the right way, people will tell you anything, literally anything. And I would meet people in funny bars who had had a friend who'd worked for a factory. Then the other key step was finding a couple of really good people, and they then knew other people. If you find a good person to work with, it's a kind of exponential benefit because, good people attract other good people, and they know good factories. And so that was the key thing, finding really good people.
We'll be right back with today's guest. The fall issue of Cherry Bomb's print magazine is finally here, and guess who our cover star is? It's Johnnie Boden of Jenny's Splendid Ice Creams, the artisanal ice cream company that changed the game. This might just be our coolest cover yet, and I can't wait for you to read all about Jenny and her entrepreneurial journey. Also, we have a bonus cover. It's the delightful Abby Belinget of The Dusky Kitchen and the award-winning cookbook, Mayumu. This issue is dedicated to the creative class and highlights innovative and imaginative folks in and around the world of food, including fashion designers, artists, photographers, and of course, lots of pastry chefs. If you're a subscriber, your copy will be in your mailbox very soon. If you aren't a subscriber, head to cherrybomb.com to snag a copy, or check out our list of retailers to find Cherry Bomb's print magazine at a store near you.
Hi, peeps. It's Jessie Sheehan, the host of She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. I have big news for you. My new cookbook, Salty, Cheesy, Herby, Crispy, Snackable Bakes, is now available. This is my first savory baking book, and I'm so excited to share it with all of you. It features 100 easy-peasy baking recipes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and of course, snacking. From sage butter scones to smash burger hand pies and tomato za'atar galette. You'll also find 6 of my essential savory baking hacks, including how to make my magic melted butter pie dough and the quickest and easiest caramelized onions. My cookbook tour is underway, and tickets are on sale right now at cherrybomb.com. Thanks to everyone who joined me in New York and San Francisco. I'll be in Chicago on Tuesday, October 15th, and Boston on Wednesday, October 23rd, and I can't wait to see you. Thank you to Kerrygold and King Arthur Baking Company for supporting my tour. You can click the link in the show notes of this episode to order the book, or pick up a copy at your favorite local bookstore. I hope you love salty, cheesy, herby, crispy, snackable bakes as much as I loved writing it.
When and why did you launch the women's side of the business?
Well, we started primarily, or in fact, entirely menswear. And then I realized pretty quickly that men just don't spend much money on clothes. I mean, they look at me now. This shirt's 5 years old. Men make do. The women's wear market's twice the size. Therefore, there's a bigger opportunity. And I launched women's wear quite early on, in fact, but it grew much more quickly than the men's range.
How did those early women's collections do?
Oh my! Well, there were some absolute dogs, but there were some winners there. The thing about clothing, rather like food, you're only as good as your last meal when you own a restaurant, and the clothing you're only as good as your last range, and you never know. You just throw lots of mud at the wall and see what sticks, and you try new things. But thankfully, we had a few products that really caught on. We had a cardigan in about the third year where we were selling 4,000 units of one style, and it became a kind of cult thing. We had a long velvet coat that was loosely inspired by a Marc Jacobs coat. It was a wash velvet coat. It came in 4 great colours, great lining, lovely belt at the back, big buttons, spotty lining, sort of coat you could wear over jeans or over a dress. It was formal and also casual. That was our first £1 million product. Having those successes gave you huge confidence.
Take me back to the launch time. Who was the woman in your mind? Were you designing for Sophie?
I was designing for Sophie, really, and my friends. It was unashamedly, in the early years, it was my friends. And I think one of the benefits of having a dominating father is that you learn to listen. In fact, and maybe you listen too much. And I was quite good at talking to people. We always had focus groups quite early on. We'd talk to customers. I'd talk to my friends. I'd see what they were buying, look at the competition. And there's so many various ways that you get inspiration. Above all, it's speaking to customers and asking what are the gaps in their wardrobe, what they like. But it was hit and miss. For the first 10 years, we were bumping along the bottom. We didn't make any money. I was barely taking a holiday, working really long hours. And then, 2000, 2002, things really picked up and we started to motor then.
What was the turnaround about?
It was a combination of things. I had this fantastic chap called Julian who's still with me, and he came and he took care of all the things I was bad at. I'm really bad at many parts of the business. And he was a very good manager. I'm impatient. Good managers are really patient. The idea of me giving somebody an appraisal fills me with absolute horror. So he took over the stuff that I was bad at. We focused on the things that really mattered. So having the really, really great ranges, making sure we were mailing the catalogues to people that were likely to buy, getting that photography, all the front end stuff, fantastic product, fantastic photography. And then the kind of back end sort of looked after itself. But it was focusing on that stuff, and just as long as 51% of your decisions are right, you're lucky. You're doing really well.
Okay, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice too. You glossed over a little bit, though, of how hard those 10 years were. I mean, didn't you almost lose your home?
Oh, my goodness. I was very relaxed about it, but Sophie wasn't. We had 2 burglaries, big burglaries, and I was defrauded by a guy, and we had to go to the bank, give our home to the bank. Sophie was in floods of tears. I hate to admit it, I was incredibly relaxed. It's going to be fine. Just sign here, it's going to be fine. Because I knew it was going to be fine. I knew that we had the customers. It was a question of and I had this fantastic guy, Julian. I've always had confidence that we were going to make it, but it was pretty unpleasant, and my children were young. My parents were both dying. It was a pretty difficult time, but whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
What was your takeaway from that experience? Because I do think that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs who aren't.
Very, that probably the best question. And I've had many, many similar problems since. I think knowing your customer and hiring the right people, they will make or break your business, those 2 issues. I would say hiring people, there are 3 components of hiring people. Number 1 is the interview and asking the questions, trying to get into the personality. So, for example, in creative roles, I will ask them to describe what their flat looks like and how they design their flat, where they go on holiday. I'll ask them what they cook, what they like cooking. And you can get a flavour for their creativity. So interview, that's a third of it. The other third is live exercises. I'm a great believer in live exercise. We've hired lots of designers who had fantastic portfolios, but then they crumpled under the pressure. So we will give a designer candidate a brief. We'll say, right, here's the brief. It's autumn, winter. It's a casual story. Can you design 10 bits of outerwear in an hour? Sketch. Again, and then the third bit is references. If you're resourceful, you can find out about people through their social media links, and you need to speak to people that candidate has worked for, or people who have worked for the candidate, or people at the same level, or people that candidate has fired. The key thing is to find out what are their faults.
Let's talk about inspiration. Your daughter, Katie, said you're inspired by anything out of the ordinary. I wanted to know what's on that list.
It's a terrible cliche, but I think if you have an eye, you always see. So, for example, I've just said to the girls outside the studio, there's a woman wearing a very nice pink cardigan. I've asked them to take a photograph of the colour. That's the most obvious thing, seeing people on the street. But for me, it's other things, like I fell asleep on a rug at my home on the other night, and I suddenly realised there were some beautiful colour combinations. I took a photograph of that. It will be flowers. It's more sort of stuff outside fashion. It's art. I don't go to loads of exhibitions, but I'm constantly looking at magazines, stuff that comes up on my Pinterest feed, vintage. But it's not just looking at your competitors. There's all sorts of things out there. Food, you name it. There's just lots of stuff every day.
You are a girl dad with 3 daughters.
Yes.
I'm curious, how has that influenced Boden over the years?
Obviously, they wear the clothes. They give me a lot of feedback. They're very direct. They buy lots of interesting things themselves. They comment on the product, on the photography in a very direct way, which can be rather hurtful, but it's just the way it is. But above all, they've got a great sense of humour and they keep me going. It's much more their personality. And when I'm feeling anxious, worried, a nice family supper puts me on a different level of happiness.
Your daughter Katie also said that you that you have never tried to be cool.
Yes.
Is that a true statement?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't see me when you're listening to the podcast. I've got red hair, I've got a red face. When I was in my teens in London, was the punk scene was happening, that you might remember. And it was very hard to have spiky hair when you got curly hair. So I tried to get it straightened.
No.
Absolutely terrible. But no, I've never... funnily enough,
we have to say, you have an amazing head of hair.
well, you're very...
People would kill for that head of hair.
I mean, in many ways, it's a bit sort of weird because part of me doesn't really care what I look like, but part of me really cares. You know, I really value well-cut clothes, but ultimately, clothes have this amazing ability to make you feel $1 million, but in so doing, you kind of forget about it. You know, and that's what we try to do with our product. Is, you know, they make you feel really great, but it's not a label that you're trying to impress people with and, oh, my clothes are cooler than yours. It's a very different world to the high fashion world where people are obsessed about showing off to their friends. We use this phrase, we appeal to inner-directed people. So inner-directed people are those that really value the inherent beauty and quality of something and a friendship or a flower or a dress, but they don't, you know, it doesn't really matter where it comes from as long as it makes them feel great. Cool people are obsessed about wearing the right things because somebody's told them they're the right things to wear rather than things that make them feel happy.
I think of coolness as something innate.
Yes. To use the food analogy, quite discreet places where the food is amazing, but they don't make a huge song and dance about it.
We also have to educate our U.S. listeners a little bit. You did accept your CBE, which stands for Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. I feel like I should say that one more time for the Americans.
We can't mention the Empire to Americans. It's really...
Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. It is a big deal to get a CBE.
Yeah.
And you received yours from Prince William last year.
Correct.
While wearing a pink suit.
Correct.
Why pink?
I think I mentioned I was at a school called Eton where we had to wear tailcoats as a uniform, very old-fashioned, traditional. And when you go to Windsor Castle, most people are wearing tailcoats. And I was thinking about it the day before, and I put it on, and I felt, I can't wear this. This is a backward step. I wore this at school for 5 years, and I felt it was a uniform that I wanted to break out from that world. I thought, I'm going to wear the pink suit that I had made for my 50th birthday party. And I spoke to a friend who works with Prince William. I said, is it okay? He said, yes, absolutely fine. He'll love it. So without betraying too many confidences, Prince William commented on it and said how much he liked it.
That's so funny. Was that the first thing he said to you?
He said, great suit. I said, yes, that goes with my face, which he liked.
I have to ask, your wife and your daughters, were they like, Dad, a pink suit to accept your CBE?
The thing that was I was most nervous about, although my father died 24 years ago, I thought, he would be turning in his grave if he saw me. So I put in my buttonhole a little sprig of his favourite flower, which is Alchemilla mollis, and I thought that was my way of saying, thank you, Dad. The girls said, oh, go on, Dad, you can do it. The girls were all in the same room, in the it's called the throne room at Windsor Castle, and they were standing at the corner. And Anna, my older daughter, said, Dad, he didn't get a word in.
Well, we're going to talk about that. You, as folks are learning, are a very candid entrepreneur. Is it true you told Prince William you didn't think you deserved the award because Boden had been having a tough year?
Yes, I did say things had been difficult, and I also said that I was accepting it on behalf of all my team. It felt a little bit surreal. We had a difficult year last year, but thankfully we've moved on.
When Boden does have a misstep or makes the wrong call regarding trends, you are very quick to acknowledge that publicly, which isn't easy to do. I mean, I can say that for myself, and having interviewed thousands of entrepreneurs at this point. You don't want your stakeholders to lose faith in you. Isn't it easier to be quiet?
Yes. I mean, to be frank, that was the only time we've really done it. But I felt it was I owed it to my customers who had noticed that things weren't as they should have been. And I thought might as well, say sorry. And in fact, we were able to spin it as quite a positive story, actually, because people like the truth.
You've said a lot of funny things about entrepreneurship over the years.
Yeah.
You said something funny, but probably true about all of us, that entrepreneurs are fundamentally unstable people, your exact words, because they want to destroy the natural order of things.
Yes.
I've never heard entrepreneurship explained quite that way.
Oh, no, I have no doubt that is the truth. I mean, when you think about it, we don't want to work in a conventional job. We think we can do better. We have the energy. We're disruptive. And I think the key thing you have to remember is that you need alongside you a stable person who can do all the managing. And you want somebody who has complementary skills, who's not going to tell you how to cook or how to design, but they're going to be very good at making sure the trains run on time.
Let's talk about the fashion business, because you have survived 3 decades plus in this business, which is one of the toughest businesses. And as I was putting the questions together, I was thinking, you've had the rise of fast fashion, the rise of resale or circular fashion, department stores opening and closing, brands coming and going, important conversations about sustainability, social media usurping traditional media, the rise of the influencer. I'm just curious, what have you done differently that's allowed you to survive when others haven't?
I think it's obviously very difficult and there's no scientific formula. If I had to answer that succinctly, I'd say it's a question of giving your customers what they want, being one step ahead of them without scaring them, getting under their skin. It sounds almost perverse, but we do these focus groups and we go to their houses and we speak to them and we understand what their needs are and what their dreams are. It becomes kind of second nature with not just me, with my team, when you're looking at a product and you say, oh, she'll love that, or oh, she's a bit bored of that, or that's a bit too much for her. And it's really being true to the values of your business, not trying to be something else, but also moving on. We are, as you said, it's a very competitive world. People are imitating, copying, doing cheaper versions. You've just got to be just one step ahead.
Will you ever open a store here in the U.S.?
Yes, we are looking at it. We did open a store in London. It was a complete disaster. And in fact, really helpful lesson because we learned so much from it. We're looking at it quite seriously at the moment. We are in Nordstrom.
Wait, you have no freestanding stores?
No, we are the second biggest British clothing brand in America with no retail presence.
But in the UK?
No, nothing. No.
Wow.
It's another business. And we've got to really, how do we bring the product to life in that three-dimensional way? It's very different to selling things off the page or from a photograph.
Huh, okay. But you are thinking about it.
Yeah. We're
Are you going to try to do it again in the UK?
US first. Because US is our biggest market. There's so many of you guys.
There are a lot of us, yes. Johnnie, who are your personal style icons?
I've never been a great couture follower. I don't spend much time following movie stars. Actually, my wife, Sophie, dresses unbelievably well. I look at her and also some members of my team. I'm quite grounded. And there are some incredible influencers and famous people, but I think consistently, I would say Sophie.
That's so nice. How long have you guys been married?
32 years, yeah. 32 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Johnnie, let's talk Boden holiday collection.
Lots of family moments, lots of tartan you call plaid. We've done something quite different, which you will soon see. Rather than shooting models, we've chosen 12 inspiring women to edit our range, and they've shot it themselves with their family and friends. I think one of the problems with holiday is it can look a bit corny. This is a much more earthy but stylish way of doing it, we think. You'll have to tell me what you think when you see it. When you put on an item of clothing of ours, we feel it brings a spring to your step.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that I do when I see models and I have to decide you can always tell if a woman really loves an item of clothing because she just smiles a little bit more and she adjusts her body in a way that makes you know that she's happier.
I do love when a brand code is joy.
Yeah.
I think our two brands have that in common. Okay, I want to talk about food. Do you cook?
I'm a very, very impatient cook. I cook a little bit. I have zero patience. So whatever I cook has to be very, very quick.
Scrambled eggs?
Yeah, I'm brilliant at breakfast. I love fillet steak. I'm very good at mashed potato. We always have the competition, this joke, what's your last supper? My last supper would be fillet steak, mashed potato, spinach, courgettes with lemon, and I do quite a good gravy. But it's quick.
It's not a bad last supper. Yeah. Okay. Any London restaurants you love?
I love food. Food is such a big deal for me whenever I travel. Planning where to go is almost as important as what shops to go and have a look at. One of the key things for me, I like to be able to walk. To me, that's part of the experience, walking to the restaurant. So where we live in London, there's an amazing, what we call a gastro pub called the Anglesey Arms, which is incredible. And we have a house in Dorset, there's a lovely restaurant there called Brassica. My youngest daughter, Stella, works at a very good restaurant in Notting Hill called Straker's. There's a lovely Polish restaurant called Ognisko in South Kensington, which has got an incredible room. I value atmosphere almost as highly as I value food. I struggle with foodie restaurants where everybody's very quiet and all you can hear is people sort of tinkling with their glasses and there's sort of too much starch white tablecloths. I can't relax. I'm a messy eater and I don't want to be quiet.
I think people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And are you pals with any of the British culinary folks? Like, are you hanging out with Nigella Lawson?
No, but I
Yotam,
did meet Gordon Ramsay once in the airport, and he was absolutely great. And I realised he would be my sort of culinary hero, not because of his cooking, but because he's such a great character.
Also a girl dad.
Yes. I said to him, Gordon, can I ask, why do you swear so much?
You asked him that?
Yes, I did.
What did he say?
Oh, I can't stop myself.
We're going to do a little speed round.
Right, okay.
What beverage do you start your day with?
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea. Yeah. How do you take it?
Earl Grey, leaf, not a bag, milk, no sugar. Part of our marriage contract, Sophie says, I will leave you if you don't bring me a cup of tea at 7 o'clock every morning.
Okay. What's your favorite snack food?
Cheese.
Cheese? What kind?
Comté.
Yum.
And Bovril. It's like Marmite.
Oh, not a cheese. It's a spread.
It's a spread, yeah. Parmesan or Comté.
Dream travel destination?
We love going to Greece, Skiathos. I love India as well. I love India.
Last question. If you had to be trapped on a deserted island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
I think it would be Gordon Ramsay or Jamie Oliver because they're entertaining. They talk a lot. They'd be quite funny and they'd be good at the practical stuff, which I'd be absolutely useless at. I'm so impractical. But I could imagine they could build quite a good shack and spears and stuff, and I would be pretty hopeless. And they'd make me laugh as well.
Where do you think you would be of assistance on the island?
I'd be quite good at, oh crikey, that's a very good point. I'd design quite a nice mural. I'd do the sort of flower arranging. That'd be about it. I'm quite good at the washing up as well. I do the washing up at home.
Okay.
I find washing up very therapeutic.
So you and I should not be trapped on a desert island together. We might starve.
Would you be as hopeless as me at the spears? I think I'm quite a kind person. I wouldn't be too competitive. And if you wanted to kill me, I'd probably say, okay, go for it.
All right, let's hope it doesn't come to that. So anyway, Johnnie, this has been so much fun. I honestly could talk to you for a whole other hour. I bet a lot of people say this to you, but I hope you write a business book one day.
You're very kind. Perhaps you should help me. My experience is very niche. I'm not sure how relevant it is for the rest of the world, but if anybody wants to do it, feel free to give me a call.
All right. Well, welcome to New York.
Kerry,
thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's it for today's show. Thank you so much to Johnnie and the team at Boden for making our miniseries possible. Be sure to use code CB10 when you're shopping over at Boden.com. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Joseph Hazen is the studio engineer at Newsstand Studios. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu. Our content operations manager is London Crenshaw. And our editorial coordinator is Sophie Keys. Special thanks to Good Studio in Brooklyn. And thanks to you for listening. You're the bomb.